recognize it.
Um, Hold on. Do we also have to say all of our names again in the beginning?
Oh, well, the thing is, since we're all going to say our names.
Yeah, do it when you do your part, I think. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm Nicole Hubbard, and I'll be presenting on cohabitation. My cousin was a 25-year-old woman living with her boyfriend and two children. She was unable to recognize she was not the only one affected by the choice to cohabit. Their choice affected the family and society. This young mom talked to her mom nearly every week before she was living with her boyfriend. She would attend family parties and enjoy interacting with everyone. After her decision to cohabitate, the family never heard from her. Her mother did voice her opinion about Catherine living with her boyfriend. She did not call or spend time with anyone else after this. Perhaps she felt threatened by her mother's opinion. Cohabiting also affected her children because it caused her oldest child, who was 8, to be very confused. At a very young age, her daughter had a value system after growing up with her grandparents. This confused her because of what she had been taught. The young daughter was looking for stability in her life, but that did not exist because the relationship ended soon after. Since then, her mother has been focused on finding a new partner rather than taking care of her children. It has also been hard for her daughter because she will get attached to one male figure and then he will up and leave. She would benefit much from a healthy, consistent marriage. Cohabitation rates are increasing dramatically. The latest Census Bureau figure shows 4 million couples living together outside of marriage. This is not including gay couples, 8 times as many as in 1970. Recent figures show that almost 2/3 of young adult men and women choose to cohabitate first, then married directly. This affects many aspects of the family, but it especially affects relationships with parents and the child well-being. The U.S. National Library of Medicine National Institutes of Health found that children who experience many transitions in a family structure may face worse developmental outcomes than children raised in a stable two-parent family and perhaps even children raised in a single-parent family. Do you want your children to have a stable home environment where they feel welcome and comfortable? As children are growing up, they are facing hard things every day that are uncomfortable and challenging. It would be wrong for them to go from an unstable school environment to an unstable home experience. After completing a study, researchers found that children growing up in a home where the parents were not married or parents switched partners frequently had many harsh outcomes. Many of them were more likely to be involved with drugs and alcohol. They had lower cognitive achievement and self-esteem. These reasons provide sufficient evidence to strive for a stable marriage. Also, cohabitation affects the parent-child relationship with the child who is choosing to cohabit. Most parents are very disappointed in their children when they choose to live together rather than marry. Those that are cohabiting claim lower amounts of parent relation satisfaction compared to those that are married. Our results confirmed that cohabitation reduces the satisfaction derived from the parental relationship. The most important relationship in life is with our family. When children choose to cohabit, they choose to put their relationship with their parents on the line. Parents become disappointed and then the children feel bad, so both withdraw from the relationship. Everyone needs their family. Children need their parents to get through this life, so they should try and do everything they can to strengthen their relationship with them. Another effect of cohabitation is negative emotional health. In a study by Linda Waite, she found that people that cohabitate are more likely to separate than couples who marry, which was kind of surprising. One reason couples cohabitate is due to the fact that there are no formal or legal bonds or responsibilities to the relationship. This makes cohabitation much more risky than marriage. Risk creates emotional unwellness in individuals that cohabit, showing signs of stress and depression. In the same article by Waite, psychological health is mentioned. And according to sociologist Susan Brown, she says, worrying that one's relationship will break up is especially distressing for cohabitating women with children who show quite high levels of depression as a result. I saw this with my cousin as well. She was concerned about how things would work out, but she also saw it as a relief. She said that if anything were ever to go wrong, she would just leave. Cohabitation is an easy way out. There are many more negative results of cohabitation. These are just a few. Cohabitation is illegal in 4 states. As it currently stands, Mississippi, Michigan, Florida, and Virginia currently have laws on the books banning cohabitation. For instance, in Virginia, it is a misdemeanor for any persons not married to each other to associate and cohabit together, and is punishable by up to a $500 fine for the first offense. A second conviction could potentially land you up to a year in prison for a $100 fine. The legal language and penalties are similar in other states, except Mississippi, where the law bans unlawful cohabitation in which a man and woman live together and it can be proven that they had habitual sexual intercourse. In 2005, Michigan's cohabitation law was used by a court to restrict visitation rights for a divorced family who was living with a woman who was not the mother of his children. And in the 1990s, the Virginia law was used in an attempt to revoke a woman's daycare license after it was discovered that she was in a cohabitating relationship. Although the government is trying to control it, it is a really hard thing to control, in my opinion. We need to educate in our communities. Start small. People need to know the risks, which will hopefully lead them to stray away from wanting to live with their partners for life or before marriage. I think it should be left to the people to choose, but they need to know that it's right first. Education is key. At the government level, they could control people from buying a house or renting a house unless they have a marriage license to show that they are lawfully wedded. I challenge all of you to recognize the dangers of cohabiting and get married instead. If cohabitation is inferior to marriage, then we as a society would benefit from more of the latter and less of the former. Thank you. Is there any questions?
You did awesome. My question is, so I was doing some research on your topic, and I found that they had support groups for people that, in the government, that were either homosexual or they cohabited or things like that, that were not mother and father relationships like their marriage. And I was wondering, why do you think, and this is your opinion, why do you think personally that they have support groups for people, basically everyone but the mother and father groups? If they think it's so good to have these cohabiting relationships like everyone out there, why do they have all these support groups? What is your opinion on that?
Okay, yeah, thanks for that question. That's actually really interesting to me. I do think that deep down they know that if they had like a male and a female that were married, like between a male and a female, that they would win, and that's the right thing to do. I think that they are scared that they'll be proven wrong because they know that they're wrong, but they want to deny it because they think that they're happy in the moment with what they're doing. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I'll go. When I have lots of aunts that did the same thing, and seeing that, it's funny because they all were born in the church and were baptized, and so my question to you is, how do you think that they can, knowing the truth and knowing that, do you think that people are feeling guilty about this, or do you think that they are just so they're just so set on their mind that it doesn't matter because they just want to have that exit? How do you think they're feeling?
You know, honestly, I think that maybe deep down they might feel a little bit guilty, but honestly, I think it's a pretty easy thing to justify. Like, you're like, oh, it's just good preparation for marriage. It will help me get to know them better. I think there is a lot of good justifications, and they can justify it and make themselves feel better, even though deep down I think there has to be a little bit of guilt.
So after all the negative consequences for cohabiting, why do you think it's still so prevalent in society? Why can't we, get a handle on it and bring down those numbers?
So honestly, I think it's a really hard thing to control. I mean, government, I don't want like a lot of government intervention, and I don't think that the government can just go into everyone's house and see if they are married or not. Like, it's a really hard thing to control and to keep tabs on because people can do it so conveniently and there's no laws set in place. It's just a hard thing to grab hold of, I think.
Can you guys hear
Hi,
me?
Laura.
Hey. So I think my question on this is I talked to a few different people about it. A lot of people say, well, if we've lived together for so long, it's considered common law marriage. So what are your thoughts on that with people that use that as their excuse, I guess, of cohabitation?
So maybe I should know this, but I don't know what you mean by common law marriage. What is that?
Well, in some states, it does say, after so long that you've lived together, it's considered a common law marriage, even though you're not legally married. Some people, or some states, see it as you're married. So for people that use that as their excuse, I get, it's just an opinion. It's not, there's no right or wrong answer. But
Yeah, no.
people that
No.
use that, well, we're common law marriage. What are your thoughts on that people use that?
Well, honestly, I think that's great that they think that and that they've been together that long, but there is no like marriage license. There is nothing official. So it's easy to just leave, up and leave. Just if something goes wrong one day, they can leave and they think life will be great. It's not an actual marriage. That's what I think.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thanks, ladies.
Tell us your email address real fast.
Yeah, of course. So it's hub13001@byui.edu.
Awesome. You can finish with whatever you were going to say.
I'm good. Do we have to say anything else? Do we have to like summarize? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think that's all you had to do. But if you had
Okay.
anything else, add to it.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go. Let me really quick type my full name and email. Okay, so I'm talking about technology in the home and monitoring it. So anyways, the reason this topic is so important to me is I'm going to tell you a little background to it. When I was, the first year I was married, my husband was super into technology, and he still is. He's actually a computer science major. But he was over the top. Like, he was on his phone all the time, on his computer all the time, and to the point where that would just take over his life. And that was super hard on our marriage, I felt like, for me personally at the beginning. There were times where he would stay up really late at night, and it would get to the point where I would get up with our baby, and at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd see him on his phone playing games. And he had to go to work in like 1 hour. So it got to the point where we had to sit down and really seek counseling with it. And he decided one week that he was going to take a step back and not use his phone at all. He was going to not play games, not do anything for an entire week. And in that week, he realized how much time he was missing with his family, and also how much time he was misusing for his calling and with schoolwork. So as the time went on, he was able to get up for work and stay all day and not feel sick by the afternoon because he actually had a whole night's rest. And he also, during that week, he found a scripture in the LDS religion that is in Joshua 60:13, and it says, "Wherefore I give unto them a commandment, thou shalt not idle away thy time, neither shalt thou bury thy talent with it, may it not be known." So when he saw that, he realized that, okay, this is important in my life. However, I can't just be using all my time for this. And as we kept going on, we also found another statement that we just need to realize that in our marriage and in any relationship that people have, that technology can rule our lives, whether it's with Snapchat. Like my sister, she takes Snapchat, so oh my gosh. Anyways, but with that part, relationships are taken over so much because our face is just in our phones and in our computers all the time. My next topic of it is the pornography side. And I didn't really want to go too much into the pornography, but here are a few stats I found. Was in 2015, the mobile adult content was expected to reach $2.8 billion. And in 2013, it was at $1 billion. So in 2 years, well, basically 1 year, because they were expecting at the beginning of 2015, it went over $1 million in just pornography on their phones. As of Tuesday of afternoon of this week, in 2015, over 400 million searches for porn on the internet has been made. And thousands, and I'm not kidding, thousands are being increased to that number every single hour. Over 25% of 16 and 17-year-olds say they've been exposed to nudity online and they did not want to see it. And then in addition to that 25%, so 55%, there's 30 more percent of people, so 55% total, received a sexual text message in that age group. 1 in 3 boys say they have viewed porn videos so many times that they have no idea how many times they've actually seen it. And 64 to 68% of teen boys look at porn at least weekly, and 18% of women look at porn weekly. According to Colin Bishop, he's a professor, and he said that as parents, we need to take a step back and monitor our children. And he gave a list of places that we can be monitoring them. And so he said mobile devices. When they're watching YouTube videos, we need to have ad blockers on our computers. And shopping catalogs, even for our little children, they're looking at the women in bikinis and things like that, that though we can't protect them from everything, we just need to be more aware of where it's at. They hear it from their friends and in TV commercials, in video games, and in videos and books and apps, again, such as Twitter, Snapchat, things like that. There's also a program in the government. It's actually by the FBI, which I thought was really cool. And it's a parent guide. It's a parent's guide to internet safety. It's a booklet and a program. It helps us be more aware as to what's happening online and the signs we need to look for in our children. So as we look at all that, I think we need to be standing as parents and know what's out there, because if we don't protect our children, who else will? That's it. Do you guys have any questions?
What are some of the steps that you are personally considering to protect your own family from the dangers of pornography?
That's a great question. So, since my husband is a computer science major and actually works in the software engineering field, we have the greatest technology out there on our computers. We have a lot of things protecting it. And it's free because he's actually been able to find programs that are really good. And the church actually offers, well, the LDS Church offers some great programs for your computers where they monitor the certain ads that come up and actually words that are on the screen. And so as a family, we have ad blockers on everything. And it is not a thing that comes up on your computer. The ads don't come through. And we have our kids cannot erase the history because, well, one, they don't know how, because we have a certain search engine that will actually, even if you erase it on the front end, it's still on the back end. So thank you. That's what we do.
I have a question for you. What do you think about TVs in like your children's rooms?
That's hard. I personally am not okay with it, but it's really hypocritical of me to say because I love having a TV in my room, but I'm not okay with it. Mainly, besides the fact that when they get older, pornography is a huge issue. The whole other reason for me is the fact that I don't want my kids staying up until 1 in the morning watching a movie without me knowing. So but that's my reason behind not wanting it in their room. Thank you, though.
I have a question. I also have to share, my husband and I were the same way. He's like a phone addict, and I've like finally got him to get off of it. But it's frustrating, especially when I'm not used to it. My question is, what do you think of, because they come out with technology for little kids. I have a 3-year-old, and he like thinks that those like leapfrog pads or whatever they are, the leap tablets, are like so awesome. And while they do have, it's funny because he got one for his 3rd birthday, and while they do have like learning games and stuff on them, there's also like little video clippings. And so he ends up just sitting there watching all these videos, and so I had to go in and delete them. But what do you think of that?
So that's actually a really good question because I'm actually so back and forth on this because I think that it's a great opportunity for kids because the technology is out there. Whether people want to say it's bad, it's there. So we can only do so much as parents to take that away because they're going to go to a friend's house and their friends are going to have it. And so I think the best thing, I personally am probably going to get it for my kids. But like you did, I will monitor it to a point and make sure that they're not just wasting their time on it. I want them to actually have the learning experience. And I'm not saying that they're not going to have fun on it, but they have to have the learning behind it as well. That's a great question because I'm still wondering a lot on that.
Yeah, it's hard too because the new ones, they have Wi-Fi connected to them, so they're like, you can connect to the internet. So that was one thing. I was like, I'm not getting the brand new one. I'm going to get the old one where you can't connect to the internet.
Oh, that's great to know. I had no idea they did that. Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, I'm not sure how old your kids are, but my question to you is, how do you monitor the time spent on different technologies so that, you have the TV and the computer and iPads and, whatever in the home? How do you monitor that with your kids, and how do you decide what's fair as far as time allotment for them to be on devices like those?
So that is an awesome question. I actually don't have to worry too much about that because they don't care enough. The only thing they really care about is watching movies. So I just turn it off. And actually at my house we have Take 5, but it's really you have your personal time. There's no technology for mom or kids. It's just a break. And you just go, and I don't care how old they are. I will always get my break, and they will always get theirs, and there won't be technology. And when they're teenagers, they'll probably still have their phones. There's only so much I can do about that. Hopefully they'll realize it's for the better. But my kids are little, and we just have a go to the room time, and they just want to be with friends, so they don't really care if I monitor it yet. So not yet do I have a problem with it. But thank you.
Fair enough.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, sounds great. Whoever's next can go.
All right, it would be my turn. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, no. It didn't switch to my face, so I just didn't know. Okay. In the 23 years of marriage that my parents had, we never saw them kiss, we never saw them hug or hold hands. They were always very upset with each other, and the only, I guess that's kind of right. The only time I ever saw my mom hold my dad's hand or give him a kiss on the cheek is when we were at her family get-togethers. And my dad, I could always tell he was very standoffish, and he was uncomfortable. You could tell, you could feel that disconnect with him. As a little child, you just like, oh, okay, whatever. And as you get older and you start seeing your friends' parents interact and see them in love or whatever, it's just a big thing to put on a child's brain because you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is wrong with my parents? 3 years into my parents' marriage, my father's dad died, and he started drinking and he became a severe alcoholic, and he suffers from severe depression. Once that took place, my mom kind of shunned him, and she just was like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Come around when I want a child. But she would yell at him in front of us kids. She would tell him that he ruined our family, and she would tell him in front of us or tell us how horrible of a man he was. 5 years ago, this was after 23 years of being married, he finally filed for divorce, and she fought it, and she fought it hard. And we were all so shocked because here's my dad finally trying to move on, because he was beaten down for so many years. He had to find a happy spot for himself. And she wasn't happy either, and yet she would not agree with the divorce. 2 years after he filed for divorce, she finally signed the papers, and everything was, if you want to say, nicely done. And here we are, 3 years later from the official date, and they still have court paperwork that she keeps going back and saying she needs more money for this and she needs more money for that. I'm obviously talking about divorce, and it's not ever a pretty thing. Even if the parents' marriage, they say that they're ending happily, it's never happy. When I first searched divorce on the internet, the first question that popped up was, does it affect children? How does it not? The one thing that got to me is, how do you even ask that question? Oftentimes the children aren't in the parents' brain right away. It's what the parents want, how they don't want to be together anymore because of whatever reasons. 41% of marriages end in divorce, the average marriage only lasting 8 years. 60% of second marriages will end in divorce, and if you get married for a third time, 73% end in divorce. On average, in America, a divorce happens every 36 seconds. That is nearly 2,400 per day, 16,800 per week, and 876,000 per year. Studies have shown that the highest rate of divorce is between the ages 20 and 24. Divorce, though, is in all ages, no matter if children are involved or not. It threatens the family structure. The finalizing divorce is a dissolution of a marriage. The finalizing that a couple is no longer married legally. Divorce has been on the rise since 1970, when the no-fault divorce policy was placed. The following was a question asked in the Oregon Judicial Department, which is where I'm from. I'm from Oregon. They said, do we need a reason to get divorced? And the answer was shocking to me, and it was hurtful. In Oregon, there is a no-fault divorce. The only reason needed for dissolution of marriage is that the spouses cannot get along and there is no way to fix the problem. The law calls this irreconcilable differences that have caused the irremediable breakdown of marriage. A spouse or partner does not need permission of the other spouse or partner to divorce. This was shocking to me because it just means that, you could disagree on one thing. That my husband and I joke that I don't like my son's hair long, and my husband loves it long. He's like, well, I'm going to divorce you if you cut it. It's just a joke. But literally he could go and file the paperwork and say he wants a divorce, and he doesn't have to. I can refuse to sign the paperwork, and he can get lawyers and attack me or whatever, but there's nothing that says that can't happen. He could do it. Mediation before divorce is something that needs to happen once again. It's a win-win situation for both couples. For those who don't want to get a divorce, when you have to sit down and discuss things and try to fix the problem, they're excited because they think that the problem is going to be fixed. While some may say, I don't want to go to mediation, I just want to get divorced and get it over with, they will end up doing it because they will realize that in order to get that divorce done and complete, that they need to sit through the mediation. They will do this because it's just another step to complete the divorce and get it finished. It might work and it might not, but it's worth a shot of trying. Granted, when it comes to those who are dealing with abuse, there's different circumstances. Obviously, they need to get out of the marriage. Who does it affect? Divorce is a huge impact on families. It tears them apart. It makes the children insecure. My younger brother is a junior in high school, and he always had some little depression issues, but when my parents finally filed for divorce, he moved in with my mom, and she continues to bash my dad. And it's hard for him because he can't say anything back to her because he thinks that, or she thinks that she is right, and if you say anything against her, then she'll just slap you in the face. My little sister is 11 years old, and she acts out like none other and says that she hates my mom, she wants to move in with my dad, and it just causes a lot of stress. Children take the blame during a divorce. No matter what they see or hear, they believe it is somehow their fault, and they are trying to figure out a way how they could have saved their marriage. I, being in high school, my senior year, when my dad filed the paperwork for divorce, I had to become the parent for my younger siblings, and that was a toll on me. I was trying to figure out how I could get my parents to get along, and it was just impossible. Children develop also trust issues at a young age. They feel unloved and unappreciated. They grow up feeling like they need to pick sides, and the pressure on the child can stunt their brain development. Children will also begin to rebel if they're in the older ages. They'll have harder time concentrating in school, which can result in lacking grades. They also tend to give up easier on things and are afraid to get married because they don't want to live like their parents did. Divorce does not affect families. It affects everyone. No, divorce does affect families and everyone around them, every single person in the family. It threatens the development of adults, adolescents, children, and it threatens the development of a family as a whole. Divorce should not be taken lightly. There needs to be some help with the relationship and an attempt to fix it before a family can officially throw it away. You shouldn't be able to go and step up and get a piece of paper just because you had one argument. There needs to be some trying to fix the problem. I know if my parents would have been able to get some counseling, get some help, my mom would have been able to see that she wasn't helping my father, who was an alcoholic, the right way. Instead of attacking him, she should have supported him and helped him get through this stressful time. Their marriage could have been saved. My dad still to this day, no matter how much pain that my mom caused him, says he loves her and he wishes something would have worked out, but it was just so hard for him to do that because she was unable to forgive and she was unable to see that she could have done anything better. I hope that from this you guys will understand that divorces can be prevented sometimes, not all the time. I'm not saying that it should never be prevented, but it should at least attempt to be saved because it affects the children and it really gives them a hard time growing up. Thank you.
So my question for you is, that was great, by the way. Since your parents got divorced, what is the best way to teach your children or to have kids talk to other, like when their parents are going through the divorce? Do you want to hear empathy? Do you want to not talk about it? As a child, how do you teach your children to be around people whose parents are going through divorce? That sounds bad, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one thing I would say is whoever it is during a divorce, people are going to pick sides. The children, are stuck in this mess, and then there's going to be, obviously my dad was inactive, and there was a lady that I worked at a grocery store and I was helping her out, and she was like, oh, I heard your mom and dad are getting divorced. She was like, it's about time, she deserves someone better. And I was so mad because they only heard one side of the story. So I think, in that I went back into work and I just started crying because I was so upset because no one at church really saw the good in my dad because they had all heard the bad stories from my mom. Oh my gosh, he drinks too much alcohol. He's the worst father ever, And so I think the best thing that children can do is be their friend, not ask too many questions. But if a child brings it up, like, oh yeah, my mom, I get to go to my dad's this weekend, or I get to go to my mom's this weekend, just be like, oh, that's cool. What are you gonna do? Because asking questions, the questions are already in a child's head. They're already thinking, what's gonna happen to my mom and dad? What's gonna happen to my family? And if other little kids are bringing that up too, it's just something that they're gonna have to deal with rather than be able to get away and be free.
Awesome. My question for you is, so like obviously the divorce rates are increasing. Can you think of like one reason why they are, like in your opinion, why the divorce rates are increasing?
I think personally it was 1970 when the no-fault degree came, and that's when it started increasing. And actually within like the last 5 years it's now kind of at a steady pace, and I think that is because of your issue, what you talked about, because so many people now are cohabitating instead of, getting married. But I think that really the main reason that it jumped so quickly in 1970 was because before that you had to go to mediation. There was laws that you had to, try to get it fixed first. And in 1970, when they said, oh, some states are going to choose this no-fault divorce policy, it's pretty much just saying you can have an argument and go get a divorce and anyone's going to sign the paper. And if you have money, then you get a lawyer that's going to require you to fill out the paperwork, and that's that. So I think that's why it just became an easy excuse out. I mean, it's harder than your topic, but having a no-fault policy when you don't have to really work on your marriage or anything, you can just be lazy about it and end it, that's why it's becoming easier to do.
Under what circumstances do you feel that divorce might be necessary?
What did you say? I didn't understand that.
Under what circumstances do you feel divorce might be necessary, if at all?
Oh, right. When obviously oh, will you finish? I heard you. In instances of abuse, I think that is necessary because I had an aunt that was physically abused by her husband, and I obviously think that is okay. In things like my parents, I think that it was necessary because my mother was unwilling to change. She was unwilling to support my father, and she was unwilling to love him for who he was. And instead of seeing his what he was suffering from and helping him through that, she just beat him down. And he is super depressed right now because of it, because he's not strong on himself. So I think that in instances where abuse are apparent, it is very necessary. And I mean, maybe years ago, if my mom would have been able to look at herself and see that maybe she wasn't doing something right, it would be different. But sometimes, if you have just a stubborn person, it's kind of inevitable to get them to change. But it's always worth a shot at fixing if it's not like physical abuse or something like that.
Okay, so my question on it is, how do you think it affects relationships between the people going through the divorce and their own siblings?
So like in my parents, like my aunts and uncles compared to my mother?
Yeah, like their relationship with each other, does it affect that relationship?
I think so. Actually, well, I guess yes and no. It depends on whether or not they are getting along. My mom is one of 7 people, and her siblings were very excited kind of for my dad's side of the view that it was happening, because they were like, you put up with this for a really long time, and we're sorry, that she is the way she is. And then my mom had another sister who was going through it at the same time, so they were able to talk to each other about it. But whenever my mother, will express or talk about how horrible my dad is, everyone kind of shuts her up and gets his back for that. And her brother is one of 6 girls, and he doesn't talk to her anymore because she went and broke her sealing with my dad 6 months after she got divorced and got sealed in the temple again. And so because of that and how quick she was to, I'm going to break this seal with my children's father, he stopped all communication. So I think there is a connection between brothers and sisters if they have that relationship beforehand. Oh, I guess there's no many questions. Oh, yeah, let me put my name and email on the side. Yes. I forgot.
I'm next.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm on my phone with Hangout, so I'll give you guys my name and email address right now. So it's Laura Espinoza, and my email address is esp10001@byui.edu. Okay, so my topic that I chose to talk on is pornography. Pornography is a visual representation of sexuality which distorts an individual's concept of the nature of conjugal relations. This, in turn, alters both sexual attitudes and behaviors. It is a major threat to marriage, to family, to children, and to individual happiness. In undermining marriage, it is one of the factors in undermining social stability. Pornography can change how others feel and act towards their family and friends, including the most important person, their spouse. 87% of men watch pornography of some sort. 31% of all women watch it as well. 90% of pornography comes from the internet, and the other 10% comes from stores in things such as magazines. Some general pornography stats from 2014 that I was able to find is that every second, 28,258 users are watching pornography on the internet. Every second, $3,075.64 is being spent on pornography purchases on the internet. Every second, 372 people are typing the word adult sex into search engines. 40 million American people regularly visit porn sites. 35% of all internet downloads are related to pornography. 1/3 of porn viewers are women. Search engines get roughly 116,000 inquiries every day related to child pornography. 34% of internet users have experienced unwanted exposure to pornographic content through ads, pop-up ads, misdirected links, or emails. Every 39 minutes, a new pornography video is being created in the United States, and there are about 200,000 Americans that are considered porn addicts. Do you honestly want your spouse or your children to be one of these statistics? Pornography is a disease that can be cured. However, like other addictions, it takes time and patience. With pornography being more and more available, we need to be aware of where it comes from and what we can do to prevent it. Pornography is everywhere around us. Our kids see it from their peers at school, on the internet, on the television, and some even in their own homes. Giving our children the understanding of what pornography is and how evil it is can drastically change their lives if they do indeed succumb to it. Pornography also inflicts mortal wounds on our most precious personal relationships. Some stats about the family and pornography that I found on the from Family Research Council stated that married men who are involved in pornography feel less satisfied with their conjugal relations and less emotionally attached to their wives. Wives notice this and get upset, therefore it leads to divorce. Pornography use is a pathway to infidelity as well as divorce and is frequently a major factor in these family disasters. Among couples affected by one spouse addiction, 2/3 experience a loss of interest in the bedroom. Pornography viewing leads to a loss of interest in good family relationships. I have a really good friend of mine. His name is Lot, and his parents are going through this addiction right now. They've been married for almost 40 years. And in talking with him about the addiction and how him and his siblings and everyone deal with it, he just his thoughts on it were, he said, I think a lot of people are scared to talk about it because It is something you would be ashamed of. Society as a whole, though, says it's okay to be involved with porn. He says he thinks quite a few people walk the line of being afraid to get help and keep going because everyone is doing it. Of course, if everyone is viewing porn, we would all be talking about it. I think that we should not be afraid to bring it up in conversations to help those that need it, because a little support can go a long ways to those that need it. We need to let the person know they are loved and help them overcome their problems and leave the awkwardness and judging to another place and another person. This can be hard because of pain and lack of trust from other people, but they will most likely never get help if they remain alone. And in talking about his father's addiction to this, he spoke with his dad quite a few times regarding it, and his dad said if he didn't have the support of his wife or his kids, that he'd be really lost with where he was. According to a National Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families that was done in 2010, 47% of families in the United States reported that pornography was a problem in their home. And 40% of sex addicts lose their spouses, 58% suffer considerable financial losses, and about a third lose their jobs. Pornography use increases the marital infidelity rate by more than 300%. And in 2010, 68% of divorce cases involve one party meeting a new person over the internet, while 56% involve one party having obsessive interest over pornographic websites. So either way you look at it, pornography is not a good thing. The majority of pornography studies that have been conducted have been with adults. This is largely due to the ethical and legal considerations of exposing children and adolescents to potentially harmful material. A handful of adolescent studies suggest no relationship between pornography and behavior. For example, a retrospective study of adolescent sex offenders found no relationship between prior exposure to pornography and the number of victims. Additionally, in a more intense interview with a subsample of youth, the majority of offenders denied that their use of pornography in any way led to the subsequent sex crime. Clearly, more research is needed about child and adolescent consumption of pornography. And this was a study that was done by Marianne Liebert of cyber psychology and behavior. We need to start talking about it and sharing it with other people and stop being afraid of it. It is a problem, and if the addiction isn't overcome, it just progresses. It is like opening a Pandora's box. We need to work together to make sure that our children will be able to have healthy, strong relationships with their future spouses. Pornography kills relationships, and it is a form of abuse for the other spouse and the children in the home who are neglected and ignored so the addict can pursue his or her fantasies. Parental controls on the web, communication with our family members, and teaching our family about this are ways to help fight it from ruining our home and our families. As an individual, we must be aware of what is coming in and out of our homes, as well as who our children are hanging out with. There is a government program out there that's called Children's Internet Protection Act, and this has to do with our children in school. And it was enacted by Congress in 2000 that addressed concerns about children's access to obscene or harmful content over the internet. And the Children's Internet Protection Act imposes certain requirements on schools and libraries that receive discounts for having blocks on internet access so that children are not able to access them. So yeah, any questions?
I have one. So, since you're a mother,
Yes.
how do you provide the best possible way? Because pornography is, I think, a hard subject for children to feel comfortable to talk to their parents about. I think it's more embarrassing. And so how do you provide a trusting environment, I guess, is the best way to ask, for your children to feel like they can come to you if they have questions about it?
I think for me, the most important thing is to have open communication with your kids. I know with my kids, every Sunday dinner, we talk about what happened during the week, and my kids trust me 100%. As they get older and become teenagers, I don't know how they'll still do with it, but I just think having clear, open communication from a young age. I mean, my youngest is 2, my oldest is 11, but my older kids, where my husband, well, my ex-husband, we're divorced now, my kids will come to me and talk to me about things, and I think it's just because I instilled that open communication with them starting at a young age, whether it's problems they're having at school or, you know, even issues they're having with me. If I do something that makes them mad, they're not scared to come and talk to me about it and work through the problem. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is having open communication with them so they're not scared to come talk to you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why do you think in the addict's mind they think it's okay? What do they have to have some justification going on in their head. What do you think that would be?
I think it's kind of just like any other drug or any other addict. They justify it in their minds to be okay, even though they know it's not okay. They justify it to be okay, and I think in an addict's mind, they always have a mindset of, I can stop anytime I want. So I think that's how they justify it, to make it okay for them in their minds.
I don't think that
Okay,
teenagers. Sorry, I don't think that teenagers understand or realize the severity of pornography. Like, what would you tell teenagers, especially teenage boys, if you could give them any advice? What would you about pornography? What would you tell them?
What would I tell a teenage boy about pornography? Is that what you asked? Okay, sorry, it was cutting in and out. Run as far and as fast away from it as you can. I really don't know what other advice to give them. I mean, I would counsel them, obviously, about how it affects relationships and future relationships. Even, you know, a lot of teenage boys aren't thinking about their futures. They're just kind of in the here and now. It again goes back to that open communication, be able to talk with them and let them see a future, not just the here and now, and just explain to them how it can affect not only those around them, but it also affects them.
That's great, thanks. Sometimes I don't think they realize what they're doing.
No.
Okay, so what are some resources you can recommend for addicts who want to start healing?
I think for addicts, there's a lot of programs out there for them. I have a friend whose ex-husband now struggles with not only alcohol addiction, but he struggled with sex addiction and pornography as well. And I know that through his AA meetings, they were able to address the pornography issues as well. Any type of counselor you can go to talk through and work through the issues. And I also know that LDS Church has an amazing resource for issues like this.
Okay. So When I was in first grade, we learned in class how a plant needs soil, water, and sunlight to grow. It is a simple process, but science has proven that without one or the other, the plant will fail to grow or die before giving fruit. Studies also show that without a father or a mother, a child has less probabilities of developing healthy and bearing the fruit of his or her full potential. In today's society, we are growing per se 1 in 3 children without one of the basic elements for his or her development. Yes, you heard correctly. 1 in 3 children are growing up in biological father-absent homes. We are humans and not plants, of course. We are biologically formed by the term of our birth, but we're not done developing. We're thinking beings. Missing out on a father is missing out on the building blocks a father provides for the children that allow the children to grow into successful, confident adults. Studies reveal that the way fathers play with their children has an important impact on a child's emotional and social development. Fathers spend a much higher percentage of their one-on-one interaction with infants and preschoolers in stimulating, playful activity than do mothers. From these interactions, children learn how to regulate their feelings and behavior. Roughhousing with dad, for example, can teach children how to deal with aggressive impulses and physical contact without losing control of their emotions. Generally speaking, fathers tend to promote independence and an orientation to the outside world. Fathers often push achievement while mothers stress nurturing, both of which are important to healthy development. As a result, children who grow up with involved fathers are more comfortable exploring the world around them and more likely to exhibit self-control and pro-social behavior. 1 in 3 children out there are more likely to embrace criminal behavior as they are being denied the development of skills necessary to thrive in life by denying them a father. The nightmare of criminals outnumbering law-abiding citizens is a real threat as fathers stand by idly during the developmental years of their children. Children who have no fathers are more likely to suffer from substance and drug abuse, to be promiscuous, to engage in vandalism, and to all kinds of self-destructive behavior, all from missing the basic building blocks in development that only a father can provide. This is a complex and sensitive issue. Any kind of law punishing the parents for divorcing or cohabiting or having children outside of a committed relationship will only in turn hurt the children. Child support laws help, but what kids need is not only the monetary sustenance of fathers. They also need their constant presence and willingness to teach, guide, and protect them. We need to encourage cohabiting couples with children to marry. We need to stress the importance of marriage and teach couples the skills that are needed for a successful union that allows them and their children to grow and prosper together. We need to raise confident girls that can wait to find the right individual before becoming mothers. We also need to raise respectful boys that will understand that all actions have to treat girls with the same respect that they treat their mothers. We need to re-educate society that when it comes to the children, the rights of the children trump that of the adult individual. Peace in our communities begins in the family, and families need fathers to succeed in raising children that can uphold that peace. Any questions?
I do. Okay. My question is, what age do you believe is impacted the most with non-traditional families?
What do I, Again, I can't hear you very clearly.
What age do you believe is most impacted, or is impacted the most with the traditional family?
I'm sorry, still can't understand you. Can you just type it in? I'm so sorry.
Let me type it real fast.
I think younger children are probably the most impacted. I I have been taking care of two little children who don't have a constant presence of their father, and I can tell you they are missing out in a lot. Their development is not what it should be as far as emotional health is concerned. They are very clingy to their mother. They, there are all of these behaviors that I see in contrast to my children who have had the constant presence of a father. And it's hard on them. It's very difficult on them not having that constant presence. They ache for it too, So I think older children might be able to understand that it's not always possible, but little children, how do you explain to them that it's sometimes better for them, or that the father doesn't want to be involved? So that's why I think it's harder on little children.
I have a question. At what point do you think it is okay for a mother to raise
You're breaking up too. I'm sorry. You said something about the mother. Okay, so I believe that when you notice that the presence of a father is a detriment to the child's development rather than an aid to the child's development, that is the point when you want out. Because the point to have a father is that he will be a good influence and a support to the children and not the opposite. And yes, there are circumstances in which it might be better to leave the father out, as if I said, he's making things worse rather than helping them. Oh, Nicole, that is a very good question. I think my advice would be to talk, when the father is deceased, talk about the father, a lot. What made you fall in love with him? What do you see in your children that is good from that you think they got from their father that it is good? You know, and if it is about divorce, then she should still tell to her children the good things that she does see in her father, in spite on the father, in spite of the difference that they had that took them, that made them decide to divorce. She could also remind them, you know, that what happened was between her and daddy and not the children, and that they do need their father, and that it is an important presence, and that she loves them, and she knows that they need that father, and so she will support them in having a good relationship, a healthy relationship with their dad. Any other questions? Okay. And so does that mean we're done?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, all this posted to the board. You guys have a good job.
Okay. Thank you guys. It was great. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.